I thought today we would have some fun with some old vintage cameras. Now these are all digital cameras. I'll show you them before we do the shots. I'm going to go do some test shots. I'm going to try to get the same test shots for all three cameras. And to make things fair, everything's going to be rendered out at the same resolution, which is 1080p 60. I'm doing this for a reason, so that everything's on a level playing field. Let's check out what I've got. I found this camera. It was dirt cheap. I couldn't resist. I collect old vintage equipment, old radios, old tape recorders, old DAT machines, old VCRs, old cameras. I just like to collect some of this old stuff. When I found this one, I thought this was kind of cool. This is a hybrid camera. It's a DCR DVD 610. It can record on a memory stick, and it'll also record onto a DVD. And I picked this thing up for a song last night. I saw it on Facebook Marketplace. I just couldn't resist because it was just too cheap. And it works. It works. There's nothing wrong with it. Plus, I got like 9 rewritable discs with it as well. And a charger. And the charger for this is the same charger that this camera uses. For that matter, so are the batteries. So here are the little discs that it uses. And I just kind of scrubbed this out because somebody had written something on it, but it is a blank disc. This one's a DVD plus RW, but it will also work with DVD-RW, DVD-R, and DVD plus R, including the plus R dual layer, if you could still find those discs. I think these discs are probably getting pretty scarce now, but I got 9 of them here. And in the best quality mode, this will store 20 minutes of DVD quality video. I think what we'll do is we're going to take this thing out today. I'm going to play with it. I'll take some shots outside with it. I'll take a couple batteries with me. Neat thing about this is it uses the standard info lithium battery. Now this one uses the H series of battery. But the more modern batteries will also fit on this camera. So this was an NP FH40. You can also use the FV70. The difference between these batteries, if you look at them, is just the length of the little tabs right here. Now, cameras that use the FV series of batteries, you can't put an H series battery on because of the length of these tabs that won't permit connecting the camera. Although it is possible. One of my favorite little cameras from the last dozen or so years has to be the HDR HC3. I recorded a lot of home video stuff on this. When I took my kids down to Disneyland, this is the camera I took. I love this camera. It's high definition, 1080i, records on tape, had a xenon flash, so it would take 4 megapixel photos, recorded the photos to memory stick, and I love this camera. I used it a lot. This was used for all my home video shooting. And this camera still works. And it used an H series battery right here. This battery is still good. This battery still holds a full charge. If I turn it on, it should be fully charged. And this battery hasn't been used in a while. I shouldn't say it hasn't been used in a while, but I do top the batteries up. This camera is from 2006. I think it's a little earlier than this one. I think this other one came out around 2008. But as you can see, it hasn't been used in a long time. So the date and time and stuff is not correct because, of course, the battery went dead. Or the internal capacitor went dead because I don't keep batteries stored on them. But this little camera works like a charm. And I really liked this little camera. But what I'm getting at is it used the H series of battery just like this camera here uses, which was prior to the V series of battery. What I did on this battery, because this is a higher capacity battery, is I milled out the plastic to make it fit on a V series camera. Now, Sony is kind of smart. They know people will do stuff like this. So on certain series of cameras, like the was it the HD? Was it HDR? I'm trying to remember the make. I think it was the HDR CX220. I have one. It's somewhere in the house. It's the one that the HDMI port failed, and I ended up fixing that. And I used that. That was a camera that I used to use for all my YouTube production early on. Before I got the AX33, which I now have the AX33 as well as the AX53, which is what I'm shooting this on. Anyway, if I put this I could put one of these batteries on, no problem. If I put this battery that I cut away the little tabs that prevent this battery from fitting on the CX220, it will run for about 1 minute, and then a message pops up on the screen. It stops recording, and it says, "This is the incorrect battery," and it shuts down. And if you remove the battery and put it back on, it'll run for about another 60 seconds of recording time, and then it will shut down again. I thought that was kind of humorous because there's a chip inside here that communicates with the camera and tells it what model this battery is, and the camera will not accept it. But I can put this battery on my AX33 and my AX53, and it will work. FDR AX33. For all practical purposes, this camera looks identical to the camera that I'm shooting on. The only difference between this camera and the camera that I'm shooting on is the megapixel count. This camera is a 20 megapixel image sensor. It will shoot stills at 10 megapixels and will do 4K video. The camera that I'm actually shooting this on is the newer AX53. It has a 16 megapixel sensor. It will only shoot 8 megapixel stills, and it will of course shoot 4K. Now the difference is this one has a 10 times zoom lens, optical zoom. The 53 has a 20 times. If I try to put this small battery on here, it should not fit, which it does not because of the tabs. However, I can put this battery that I chopped the tabs off. It will fit, and it will work on the AX33, the AX53, and the AX100. It will not work on the CX220. I get the message on the CX220. On this camera, it works fine. Now, one of the neat things about this camera is, of course, it's got the balanced optical stabilization, which is very good. It's very good. You can get some really good handheld shots, and that's why I use this one when I travel. This is the camera I generally take with me. I would take the 53 because the 53 has a longer zoom lens, but I generally want to be able to do my still photography as well. If I'm just snapping pictures of scenery and stuff, I don't want to have to take a bunch of cameras. So if I'm going to take just one camera, I'm going to take this one. Or more than likely, I will take my AX100, which is a little bit bigger than this. And if I'm doing any serious landscapes type videos, which I've done in the past, I usually take my AX100 because it will do 20 megapixel stills as well as shoot 4K video, and it has a much bigger sensor. Doesn't have the balanced, they call it the balanced optical stabilization. It has optical stabilization internal. It actually moves the chip on the back side of the lens, but the lens itself doesn't float. So it's not quite as good as this. But other than that, it actually does shoot a better picture. So I have lots of cameras at my disposal to shoot video with. This is my backup for when I'm doing video. A lot of times the 53 stays on the tripod where it is now, over the bench. It never moves. If I'm doing a second camera shoot or if I'm doing something outside, I usually take this one out and shoot the secondary shots on this camera. Cut them together, you can't tell the difference between the two. The main difference is the sound. This one, the sound on the microphone's a little bit different on this. It doesn't have quite as wide a stereo, and many people like the sound off this better. I like the sound off this one better too, but This one here is the one I take out. I've got a separate tripod mount on this, and I can just snap it on a tripod and I'm good to go. But as you can see, it's still running on this battery. It has not shut down. I'm just kind of proving a point here that the H series batteries will work on this camera. The V series batteries will also go onto this camera. So I think what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take this camera out. I'm going to take all three of these cameras out. I'm going to put a tape in this camera, and I'm going to do some shooting. It's a fall day today. There should be some nice color out there. I'm going to do some shooting on this camera. I'm going to do some shooting on this camera in 1080 mode. I'm not going to bump it up to 4K, or should I? Should I bump it up to 4K? Nah. Maybe I will. I'll do some shooting in 4K on this one. I'll do some shooting in 1080i on this one, and I'll do some shooting in DVD on this one. And we'll put the footage together so we can kind of compare these three late generation cameras. Now, when I say this one's a hybrid, what I mean by hybrid is this one here also takes a memory stick. Oops. Got a 1 gig memory stick. When I got the camera, it came with a 1 gig and a 4 gig memory stick. Unfortunately, the 4 gig memory stick somehow has become write protected. I can't format it. I can't delete the files that are on it, and I can't use it. I put it in the camera and it just says cannot write to it. So there's something wrong with that memory stick. It seems to be, I've got so many SD cards that have locked themselves, micro SD cards. I haven't had any of the full-size ones, but I've got 2 or 3 micro SD cards which have just locked themselves into a write protect mode, and there's just no way, at least I haven't been able to figure out how to do it. Maybe I'll figure it out someday, but anyway, this one here, to say it like this, it has a little slide here. Look at the little slide so that you can slide the memory stick out and it'll actually lift it up for you. Anyway, memory stick can be used for photos and for video on this, so I think what I'll do is I will do some shooting. I will do some shooting to the memory stick because I want to see if there's a difference in the quality. I will do some shooting to the DVD at the highest quality. We'll do some shots on this camera on an HDV tape in high definition, and I will do some shots on this camera, and maybe I'll do some shots in both 4K and HD. But the video that we're going to output, I think I'm going to limit it to HD. I'm not going to upscale it to 4K. That's my little project for this afternoon. I'm going to go get myself some lunch and then do a little bit of filming. We'll do some filming in different places and see if I can get some of the leaves changing color and stuff, being fall, and we'll have some fun, and we'll do the picture quality comparison between these three different cameras. And of course, this one should look the best of all of them. This one should look the second best, and this one here, well, it's going to have to be up-resed to 1080, but it's only a 480 progressive camera. It's a 480p. So we know that the quality of this is not going to be as good. I just think it's kind of neat that it was a camera that was out. These were not out for very long. These ones came out. There was also another one out, which I don't have, which I may acquire at some point if I can find one cheap that records to an internal hard drive and has an internal like 160 gig hard drive built in. That was another camera that they came out with. Of course, with those ones, you have to download the content. You can't remove the media. But this was all in the interim when they were moving from tape to solid state. I think in the standard definition world, this one probably was the best of the solutions that were available at the time, because you could record direct to a disc that you could put in your DVD player, but you could also record to a memory stick so that you could just pop it in your computer and edit. You didn't have to do anything. In this case, I'm going to shoot some content on both the DVD and the memory stick so that we can compare the two and see if there's any difference in quality between the encoder for the memory stick and the DVD encoder. Anyway, let's see how they look. So I went out and shot some video on all three cameras. I had some problems with this SanDisk memory card on this camera. It decided that it no longer wants to write. I got most of my shots that I needed, but yeah, SanDisk crap. This card, as I probably said in the video, used to be in the camera that I'm recording this on, and I started having trouble with that, so I replaced it, and I just happened to grab it and put it in this one today for this demo, and now I realize why. I remember why I stopped using it, because I would get buffer overflow, as for some reason the card's not writing fast enough. Anyway, I got my shots. on this camera. I got the same type of shots on the little HDV camera, and of course I recorded the same shots on the DVD camera and memory stick. One annoying thing about this particular camera, if you can see this message, I think I'm in, I might be in memory mode right now. Let's see what mode I'm in. I think I'm in memory stick mode. Yeah, I'm in memory stick mode. So let's just switch it to disk. This is something that is very annoying with this camera. And that is, every time you turn it on, it comes up and tells you Sony discs are recommended. And then when you go to do your recording, every time you fire it up, it'll come up and say, this disc has been formatted to record movies in 16:9. And that message stays up for 5 seconds every time you make the recording, which is kind of annoying. But recordings have been made. I need to finalize this disc before I can utilize it in my DVD player or rip it. So I'm going to go into, I think it's home. Is it home I press? And I got to go down here to finalize, right up here. And I have to finalize the disc. And now what it's going to do is it's going to, I got to avoid any vibration, because of course if we bump the camera while it's writing, it's going to cause a problem. But it's going to create, for each scene or for each clip, it's going to create a menu. So when this disc goes into a DVD player, all these menus will show up and you can select each shot. And now it should be done. Here we go. This disc can be ejected and viewed on another device. So now I can hit the eject button over here and it will open up. You shut it off. We'll remove the disc and we'll import this in. I'll show you the shots from all three of them. So that's what's coming up next. Notice the noise that the drive makes when it's writing to the disc. You'll hear it being picked up by the microphone. This is right off the DVD disc. I'll show the same shots off of the memory stick just so you can compare the two of them as well. But I'll let this shot play for a bit, then we'll look at the same shots from the memory stick. This camera records 30 frames progressive, and it shows whenever there's any movement, you see it flickering. I'm outputting this at 60 frames because the HDV camera is 60i, and when I shot on the other camera, I also shot it at 30 frames, which will be rendered up at 60. But we'll see a progression in quality. Go from this camera to the next one and then up to the 4K camera. And yes, that does appear to be dirt inside the lens, so we may have to take this apart, see if we can clean up that lens, because that looks like maybe some of the internal lubrication is dripped into the lens itself. Here are the same shots off the same camera recorded to the memory stick. Now, these ones are actually showing up in 16:9. Even though it was set to 16:9, when the DVD ripped, for whatever reason, it got ripped as 4:3, so I'll have to scale that out to fill the screen. This next series of shots was shot on the HDV camera at 1080 interlaced. So as you notice, the picture quality is far better than what it was off that other camera, which looked pretty pathetic. I can only imagine how much it's going to get, how much better it's going to get off of the 4K camera, even though it's only going to be presented in 1080 for you to observe. So we're trying to keep everything on a level playing field, but the other camera should be even better than this, substantially better. And yes, if you listen, you can hear the whine of the head drum spinning at 9,000 RPM. These shots were recorded on the FDR AX33, which was a 4K camera. Again, we're only watching this in 1080, but I don't think there's any comparison between this one and the other two. It leaves them both in the dust.
We're back on the HDV camera again. As you can see, there is a noticeable drop in quality. Even though they're both rated at 1080, this is 1080i versus 1080p. Huge difference in quality, even looking at it on my monitor here. I'm not even going to show any more shots from that DVD camera because that was pretty bad. That was worse than bad. This is acceptable, but the other camera is superior. We're back on the FDR AX33 for a couple of shots. I don't think there's any denying how good this camera really looks. And this was shot in 4K. It's rendered down to 1080p. I'm going to put these shots up again in 4K at full quality so you guys can see how good this one really looks if you've got a good monitor. Because I got some good shots today. Right up to the point where the memory card decided it no longer wanted to accept any data. And even after formatting it, after I cleared all the data off and I formatted it, it says, nope, I don't want to record. So I don't know what went wrong with that SanDisk card, but something failed on it. It doesn't want to write anymore. It's in the bin. That's a problem with cheap memory, is it works until it stops working. So something's gone wrong with it. Say it was working fine, and then all of a sudden it just stopped. So you're using SD cards, always have a spare, because that can happen. I didn't lose any shots, it just stopped recording. One nice thing about shooting in 4K is it allows you to crop. This is from the same shot as before, and I was able to crop it at a 1080 and take out a 1080 portion from the middle of the frame. You can zoom in on existing shots, still get the same quality. This shot is another prime example. This was a still shot. There was no panning done when this was recorded. This was a fixed shot that I cropped and then used keyframes to scan across the shot. At the end of this pan here, you will see that this is the base shot that was used for the entire frame. This is the 4K frame that has now been scaled back to 1080 without cropping. And that's one of the advantages of shooting in 4K, is that you have the ability, even if you're producing in 1080, you have the ability to reframe and zoom and pan your shots after the fact. This is a live pan, this part, by the way. Back to another shot from the tape-based HDV camera at 1080i. Of course, we had to make a trip to the duck pond, get a few shots here, and then we'll finish this one off. And I will actually put another 1 or 2 shots up from that crappy DVD camera off of the memory stick shots, just so you guys can get a reminder of how bad it really is. It's horrible. And why anybody thinks they should shoot anything in standard definition these days, I shake my head, because you're so limited as to what you can do with it. Again, this is the HDV camera. I'll show a shot from that horrible DVD camera, and then we'll look at some more shots from the 4K down res to 1080, and we'll finish this one up. I'll do another one showing all the shots in 4K from the 4K camera from the shoot, because I got some nice shots today. It's pretty much the last that we're going to see for the summer, because it's going to rain tomorrow and windy, and then all the leaves are going to be gone. So this is probably the last good shooting day I've got for this year, for outside at least. I shouldn't need to tell you that this is the horrible DVD camera. I shouldn't need to tell you that, unless you're blind. Alright, this is back to the HDV camera again, and we'll take a look at the final shots from the 4K camera, and we'll close this one off pretty quick here. Okay, here's the same shot on the 4K camera. There's where my SanDisk memory card crapped out. We're back on the HDD for the last couple shots. I might finish it off with a horrible shot from that DVD camera. But I think you can see clearly there is a marked difference in the quality between a 1080 and a 1080i and a 1080p. Huge difference in quality, actually. And that's why I shoot in 1080p at 60 frames. Because the only other option I have is to shoot in 24p. And 24p is just too slow. While I was out shooting this, the shitty SanDisk memory card that I've got decided that it no longer wants to write data. It's not that old, but as I was shooting, I started getting into a buffer overflow, and this card just does not want to write data anymore. Now this card has been used quite a bit, but it's nowhere near full. But for whatever reason, these cards are a joke. I bought 2 of these cards. Oh, I guess I've had these cards for probably 4 or 5 years. I used to use this card in my studio to record all my repair videos on, and I started having some issues with it. So I just kind of took it out of service. That I've been using Samsung micro SD cards and an SD adapter, and I just threw this card in this camera today to do some testing, but this card is not wanting to cooperate with me, so unfortunately I can't do any more shooting today with this camera. But the HDV camera never lets me down because it's tape. And the quality of it is, as you can see, very good. Until tape dropouts start to happen, which is a problem with all tape, is that you get tape dropouts. But as you can see, even though they're both 1080, the other one looks a lot better. It's got a much higher color space as well than this one, which is 420.
Remind me not to buy SanDisk memory. The only memory I've ever had trouble with is SanDisk. And I've had a few that have died. Actually, quite a few. I currently have a twin to it in my car that all my music is on. And every so often when I start up my car, the media player has to re-index the card for some reason. I'm not adding anything to it. It's just the same music that's been there since 2019. And every so often when I start the car up, it will say re-indexing the music card. Just junk SanDisk memory.
I'll finish this one off with a couple of files from that DVD camera. This is actually off the memory stick, because at least it's in 16:9. I didn't scale this to fill the screen, so this is what the image looks like coming right off the camera. It's pretty bad. It's worse than bad, but hey, it was cheap, and I could sell it and easily get what I paid for it because it was pretty cheap. Anyway, it's one to my collection. I always wanted a unique one, so that's it. Thanks for watching.